In today's episode, I'm using a number of products from Judykins to create a fun, space-themed necklace inspired by one of my favorite cartoons as a child. Condition your polymer clay and then roll it into sheets. Make them as thick or as thin as you'd like. We're going to use the stamp to texture it. I'm using a bright green clay, some purple, and some orange. This stamp just seemed like the perfect choice for this necklace inspired by one of my favorite cartoons when I was a kid. Once all of the images were impressed in the clay, it was time to cut them out. I'm using a round cutter just a little bit bigger than the images. Next, I need to make 2 holes in each disc on opposite sides. This will be for the jump rings. The fourth element for the necklace is made with silver metallic clay, and I'm texturing it with the retro clay squisher from Judykins. And I just place the silver sheet on top of the area of the clay squisher that I want to use to make my texture, and then I'm just going to roll over it and apply pressure with my clay roller. And you can see the great detail that the clay squishers give to the polymer clay. To cut the shape, I'm using a craft knife and just freeform cutting it. You could print something and trace if you'd prefer. The shape I'm using is another sort of retro shape, and it's actually the shape that's behind the logo for the name of the Space Family cartoon that I used to watch as a child. I'm making 2 holes in this element also with my tool. I'm placing them sort of near the top on opposite sides. I baked all of the pieces according to the manufacturer instructions and let them cool. Now it's time to add some sparkle. And to do that, I'm using embossing powders from Judykins. To make the embossing powder stick to the outer edges of each disc, I'm using an embossing pad and just brushing it over the outer edges. For the green disc, I'm using Groovy Green powder, and I'm just going to carefully sprinkle it around that outer edge. After I apply each color of powder, I kind of flick it with my fingers, and that will help remove any of those stray particles that we don't want in the center of the disc. The purple disc is getting its sparkle from this Violet Twinkle embossing powder. And the orange disc gets its sparkle from Orange Twinkle embossing powder. Once I had applied the powders to all 3 of the colored discs, I placed them back in my preheated oven and allowed them to melt that way. You could also use an embossing tool for this step. Once the embossing powders were adhered and the discs were allowed to cool, I wanted to add a shiny layer, and I'm using flux enameling resin from Judykins for this. This is a super easy product to use. I'm just sprinkling it over the surface of each disc, and you can use your finger to spread it a bit or a paintbrush. Once I had some of that flux enameling resin on each disc, I placed them in the oven at 250 degrees as per the instructions and allowed that enameling resin to cure. I wanted to bring out the detail of the silver piece a little bit, And to do that, I'm using a silver Krylon leafing pen, and I'm just very lightly coloring over the surface of this has already been baked, the surface of the baked element, and it'll highlight the surface areas and allow the shadowing beneath to remain. Also added some of that leafing to the outer edges, and then I applied the flux to this piece and baked it to cure the enameling resin. Once that enameling resin has set and the pieces have cooled, it's time to add the jump rings, and I use some silver beads between them and a silver chain. I just need to finish up this little piece and my necklace will be ready to wear.
We hope you're enjoying our Greetings from Outer Space series sponsored by Judykins. Please follow us on social media. Sign up on our website and you're automatically entered to win a prize package full of products from some of our favorite sponsors. And remember, as we always say, when creativity knocks, open the door.